I'm Sonia. I'm an artist and performer. I approach, I think, a lot of things from a theatre making background, but I think I've moved away from that. I'm more interested in using the word performance now because I think it encapsulates different ways of expressing and using your body. I'm interested in making not just performances but also experiences. I also work regularly as a live model, which has actually helped me a lot in understanding the use of my body as well. So I think when you talk about the politics of the body, it is about how you organize your body and how your body relates to other things, and oftentimes it may not be within your control completely. Probably your body is the one space that you can be the most autonomous still. Of course, people can enforce and put things on you and try to control you and force you, but at the end of the day, they cannot inhabit your body, only you can. So I think body politics is especially poignant for any group that has been marginalised. I do have a feminist perspective, so I think that informs the way my works come across, and maybe that informs how it's read as well. But I don't consciously put it there, like how you would say, I don't consciously go and explore it actually. But I think the way I explore it, because a lot of my work I think comes from a place of lived experience, of interest. I usually start from personal scratchings or itchings inside, and tends to be intermingled with the lived experience of my personal stuff. So I guess that's why some of it that emerges tends to deal with issues to do with being a woman in society. Every work is different, and every work has different seeds, and different roots. Because I don't just make my own work, I'm also often a collaborator in other people's work. So for instance, if I'm a collaborator in someone else's work, it's much easier to, also not much easier, but the frame is much clearer for me of where I'm working from, where I'm starting from, my curiosity, because usually they already have some kind of idea they want to investigate or approach, then they rope me in and tell me. So I know I'm looking within those things already. So it's not something that came out of me like the original vision or concept, there's a big overarching vision concept by someone else already, and more of I bring forth things that I feel are related to it, and then the overarching artist whose work it is will have the autonomy to decide what they want to include or not want to include. 2017 was when Me Too was starting to come up. I only realized this retrospectively this year, that oh yeah, it was 2017, the year of Me Too, so probably that also fueled my impulse. And then I think and then I realized that I've always been drawn to or inspired by women characters that are a little bit crazy, a little bit feral, a little bit dark, and they're always tropes. There's so many tropes of women characters in literature or in media, and I think I was quite drawn to looking specifically also at sex in terms of how it relates to a woman's body, because women's bodies are always policed, and one way that they are always policed is always about how much the sex they're having or how much sex they're not having, but it's always very linked to that. And it's the moment you're born, it's something that is somehow society seems to have so many opinions on it, expressed in a specific way. I'm not saying that other genders don't have it, but I think we know we live in still a largely patriarchal society, so the organization of it tends to frame women in a very specific light. Of course, we have shifted and thankfully grown and changed a lot and evolved, and now we are evolved between the gender binary. Actually, it's always been beyond, but it's just that at least now I feel that the conversation I'm talking about it is quite different from even just a few years ago. Even 2017, I wasn't even thinking about non-binary people, all that, and I was thinking very specifically about females and women. So in the later version, I did try to be more sensitive of that. But so that was where it came from. If you ask me, I guess it's just relating to what is your curiosity at that time, and also what is urgently speaking to you at that moment. I did Red Thread, which was my first ever installation experience, a public art installation. So we had a booth, and basically the booth was like a photo booth. We actually made a physical photo booth, and you go in and we were inviting people to take a selfie, but a selfie of any body part, but naked body part. So it can be any part, and to share their body stories. Basically to encourage them to, what do you feel you've had to cover up in society, that you've been taught that is wrong or not part of you, that you felt you've had to cover up or make invisible to be and just exist even in this society, right? And then to share, so ask them to take a photo, and they frame it because it's photo booth, so they decide how much of themselves they want to see. But we did try to encourage the focus to be on the body part, so to be more anonymous, partly for safety, but also partly to, actually yeah, it's more for safety, but also to focus it on the body part. And we wanted to show that nakedness doesn't need to be sexual, you know, and also not linked to the person's like identity in terms of their facts of who they are, you know, because people always do that with you, like give identity markers and place all these expectations on you. So it's really trying to look at the body, the naked body and naked body parts. And then crucially, after they take the photo, there's a slip of paper that asks them to write down what this body part means to them. And some people wrote very personal things, some people wrote very blah things, and some people just shared like an anecdote, you know. So but that was the first part of it. So we had this public photo booth, public art installation on outside substation, Amin Street. That's the first part. So we had the booth out for like 2 weeks, and then the last weekend of the 2 weeks, we basically chose photos from the submissions with all the handwritten notes, and we made an exhibition that was open for the weekend. So we hung up all these body stories and their body parts in the set bar, and we used spray thread, and then we had 2 nights of sharing where we had like what we call like sharing circles. So we had facilitated conversations with people. It's not always about a narrative in terms of like conventional beginning, middle, end, like in terms of that. But I do think, maybe because I come from theatre in a very old-fashioned way of thinking, I do think a lot of art is about storytelling, but stories of how you tell your story is your own way to tell, and stories can be told without words. Stories can be told through like visuals, right? The second wave feminism, so many artists came up with this need to talk about the use of like the libidinal body, what my friend says, and I still resonate with that as a woman artist, as me. But I don't also feel like, why do I have to say that as a woman artist? It's just me as an artist, that is my interest in bodies and stuff, right? And it's because the body I know best is this body, so that's why a lot of my investigation or research looks at that. But then there are also many female artists who have no interest at all in this, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is a tendency, of course, when we say unspoken, that it will link to marginalised, so which is also of course something I feel very strongly for, because I think that the world is unfair, and how can we try to make it, not say more fair, but how can we try to make it more inclusive? How can we try to make it more open and compassionate?